This wild card edition of the Aftermath presented by Tyson. I am Rhett Lewis. Gang is all here with me. Mike Silver, Daniel Jeremiah, Steve Wyche, all now as the head coaching vacancies are starting to heat up a little bit with Mike McCarthy on his way to Dallas. DJ, we're also getting the draft talk now heating up a little bit with Tua Tagovailoa announcing his intentions to enter into the 2020 draft. It's all coming up here. But let's begin, guys, with the news that we're hearing in Dallas. It is new right now. They have their new head coach. And this coming just less than 24 hours after the Cowboys make it official and part ways with Jason Garrett that they have announced we are reporting that they have hired Mike McCarthy as their new head coach. Ian Rappaport says it is a 5-year contract, bringing a Super Bowl pedigree to Dallas as the head coach. So for more now, let's head to Frisco, where Jane Slater has been following this story here for us for about a year, it seems like, with Jason Garrett's contract expiring at the end of this season. And now that we've settled here on Mike McCarthy, Jane, what kind of insight can you give us into the process that led Jerry Jones to Mike McCarthy?
Well, obviously, this was a difficult process for Jerry Jones, who took a week to figure this out and make this announcement. As we had reported throughout last week, it was a curious scene, constantly seeing Jason Garrett show up to work and do the job as if he was staying, despite doing that team meeting on Tuesday and telling players goodbye without actually saying goodbye. This is closure for Jason Garrett, but it's also closure for a couple of other coaches. I talked to defensive coordinator Rod Marinelli about 5 minutes ago, and while it looks very clear that Mike McCarthy is going to move in a different direction with this defense, Marinelli had this funny quote that he told me that I could use, and it's so Rod Marinelli. He said, "The only thing I know is they can't send me back to Vietnam. After that, it's cake. Outlook is always forward." That is the type of guy that I came to know in that building. In fact, we had a special bond because there's a couple of us female reporters around here, and he's got 2 very strong daughters that he's incredibly proud of. He would put us on group chats and make sure that we stayed in touch because his daughters worked in male-dominated businesses, and he encouraged us to be great at our jobs the same way he encouraged his players. If you talk to his players, he would typically print out pictures of presidents and let the players know that there were certain qualities about that player that were actual qualities in presidents as well. He always would pull players aside and let them know how important it was to be a good dad. Tyrone Crawford talks about that often. DeMarcus Lawrence would talk about that often to me. So I know these guys are going to be sad to see Marinelli move on, but we've got other coaches that are waiting around, guys that have expiring contracts that are waiting to see if McCarthy's going to retain them. And then you also have coaches that still have contracts like guys like Mark Colombo, Sanjay Lau, Kellen Moore, John Kitna. Right. Will Mike McCarthy retain them? Last I checked with a lot of these coaches, they still haven't received word. And by the way, we still have no official announcement from the Cowboys that this coaching hire is official, even though Mike McCarthy has, in fact, done that. We've had Brad Sham on the NFL Network, and their podcast are talking about it. So it is curious.
Well, yeah, I had to catch myself because, Tom Pelissero had reported from McCarthy that he signed the deal, and it was a done deal. But, yes, not official from the Cowboys just yet. And, look, they've got, as you mentioned, they've got deals that they have to figure out with the coaches, but also with some notable players. And as Mike McCarthy comes in, he's going to be familiar with at least one of those players in Randall Cobb that's been here now in his first season with the Cowboys, of course, was with McCarthy. What did he have to tell you about what the Cowboys are getting?
Yeah, it's going to be a busy offseason for the Cowboys after we get through this coaching search. They've got 26 free agents. They've got Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott to try and shore up, and Randall Cobb is one of those free agents who will be mulling his future. Now, I talked to him and his wife at the end of the season. His wife, a chemical patent attorney who is pregnant with their second child. She's due really within the next month. They have both expressed a desire to stay here in Dallas. She's interviewed with law firms. That's how much she loves it. He loves this locker room. And on the McCarthy hire this morning, he told me that he spent 8 years in Green Bay with them. McCarthy was responsible for getting him in the draft and also responsible for getting him going in that offense early, an offense that he said had a lot of star power. So a lot of good things to say about McCarthy, and certainly an indication that we could see Randall Cobb back here next year.
Jane Slater live for us there in Frisco with the latest on Mike McCarthy joining the Cowboys as their head coach, but still a lot of pieces left to fit into that puzzle there for the Cowboys heading into 2020. Thanks very much. How about Devontae Adams, former Packers receiver and a former player of under Mike McCarthy when he was there in Green Bay? Good for Big Mike. Happy for you, Coach. And now we bring this discussion of Mike McCarthy heading to the Cowboys to you first here, Mike Silver. What does this tell you about Jerry Jones's intentions for this franchise and for the immediate future of this franchise by hiring a coach like Mike McCarthy?
Well, Rhett, clearly Jerry Jones wanted plug and play. He believes he has the framework of a team that can compete now. He's at an age where he desperately wants to win immediately. And Mike McCarthy has those kind of credentials, having won his first and only Super Bowl as a head coach in Jerry Jones' home stadium 9 years ago. And the other guy he talked to was Marvin Lewis. So clearly he wanted an adult in the room, somebody who is a pro, knows how to do this, and I think significantly someone who's amenable to maybe keeping some of the coaches on staff that Jerry Jones believes should be part of this framework that is plug and play. And I also think you're seeing a larger trend in the NFL because for a couple of years we heard after the success of wonderkin Sean McVay, well, we got to find the next Sean McVay. We want a young offensive whiz. A lot of people were shocked when Cliff Kingsbury got the job last year after not having won a lot at Texas Tech. Now you have, in the wake of, let's say, amateur hour, perhaps in a city in Ohio, in a one-and-done scenario that didn't go so well, you have Ron Rivera off the board immediately, an adult in the room with Washington and now McCarthy, and Marvin Lewis interviewing in both places. I think teams are now a lot more focused on who can I get that's a pro.
Well, Mike, and that's not to say that Jason Garrett wasn't a pro. I mean, I think he was an adult and he handled himself very well. But Jerry also wanted a new voice in there and somebody who comes in with automatic respectability and gravitas, and that's Mike McCarthy. And that's why he interviewed someone like Marvin Lewis as well. And one thing we all have covered and dealt with Mike McCarthy. He's going to bring some organization to that franchise. That locker room, you're probably not going to have some of these player outbursts, some of the behaviors you've had. He's somebody who really stabilized the situation, and that is what they need in Dallas. But he's also someone like Jason Garrett, but on a different voice, different level, who is an offensive play caller, an offensive designer. We saw a piece that Tom Pelissero, our own Tom Pelissero, did this year on how McCarthy in his year out has really been studying analytics and the new trends. So it's going to be very interesting coaching-wise to see what he implements to take advantage of Dak Prescott, because Dak Prescott is part of this deal. Let's not forget that McCarthy is a quarterback developer. Like when Aaron Rodgers was sitting behind Brett Favre, there were some things he did with him mechanically and professionally to try and make Aaron Rodgers a better player. So he was ready to rip when Favre finally decided to retire. So all of that, I'm sure, went into play. And Mike, like you said, with the coaching staff bringing some folks in, I have heard, as Tom Pelissero has, that Mike Nolan, a linebackers coach and former head coach, is going to be his defensive coordinator, but also keeping some of the people on staff as well.
Tom had also reported that in his time off, Mike actually spent a lot of time watching tape of Dak Prescott with the Cowboys as one of the things that had really intrigued him. So it kind of brings up the question, DJ. We saw how much control Aaron Rodgers had in that Mike McCarthy offense when they were there together. How do you view this relationship and how much control you think he'd be willing to give a younger player in Dak Prescott?
Well, it's going to be fascinating, and when you look at the situation with the Packers under McCarthy, obviously threw the ball all over the yard. You look at the rushing attempts, so they just weren't committed to the run game, and they were efficient with it. Aaron Jones in 17 and 18 averaged more yards per carry than he did this year in his big year with the Packers. They just didn't run it as much. Part of the reason was because you have a quarterback with control at the line of scrimmage who could get you out of run plays whenever he wanted, as Aaron Rodgers would do, and throw the ball around the yard. How much of that freedom are they going to give Dak Prescott is going to be fascinating to watch. And also, this scheme. He's been spending this last year studying trends, studying a little bit of the college game as well. Will it be the scheme we saw in Green Bay, or will there be some adjustments in what he learned over the last year?
Right. They were 60% pass in Green Bay since Mike McCarthy took over there from 2006 then to 2018. That was fifth most in the league in that time period. With a guy like Ezekiel Elliott, you know, it'd be kind of strange to see that much commitment to the pass game as he gets to Dallas. But we'll see how that offense develops. I'm caught up with Dalvin Cook after the Vikings win.
That's one. Got a couple more to go. But it just shows the guys we got in that locker room. We was down some guys on the back end. You know, I've been out the past couple of weeks. Tried to find my rhythm early. I think I got in the groove pretty good early. The line opened it up, but hostile environment, we got a W, man, in overtime. That's playoff football.
They got you 30 touches today, a couple of touchdowns. You've been waiting for this. How'd you feel?
I'm ready to tote the load as much as I get the ball. And they keep handing it to me, I'm going to tote it. So I just got to, man, keep practicing hard, keep working, and I got some guys in the locker room that's willing to fight, man. If you ain't willing to fight with those guys, man, it's crazy, man.
And there's Stephon Diggs. There you go. Heading into work this morning. Mike, is this how you showed up to work this morning? Riding a bike
it's
like
weird how
Stephon Diggs
is much happier now than when he was throwing his helmet.
He
when
was
they had
not
a lead
happy
in the game.
in the first half.
Receivers.
I know, right? Well, Mike, look, I think a lot, Mike Zimmer talked about it, leading up to this game. Nobody was giving the Vikings a chance heading into this one. How do you view the Vikings' resolve in the face of a tough environment and a really good football team and coming out on top?
Well, a lot of coaches and players will say that, right? No one thought we could do this. No one gave us a chance. But Mike Zimmer had some real reason to be concerned with the noise, not so much because people were saying he might get fired if this game went badly, but because that can seep into players' minds. It could become an organizational thing. There was all this talk about maybe Mike Zimmer won't be back. Maybe they'll blow up this Vikings team. Maybe this will be it for the Kirk Cousins experiment. He doesn't do well in big games. And despite all of that, Mike Zimmer